Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Book Club. Hello to Jan and Ava and Eregian93. Hello, everybody, and welcome. As you can see, I'm flying solo today. I was hoping to have an episode where I had a few guests on discussing Comic-Con and other various conventions, but as luck would have it, nobody is available today because they're all preparing for Comic-Con, which begins in a couple of days on this coming Wednesday. And I'm in the throes of preparing for it myself. So, but I didn't want to go a week without a show and a happy discussion with everybody. So here I am on my own. And we do have the Skype line and the hotline, which you can see will come around on the bottom screen here. So if you want to Skype in, you can Skype to Torn Book Club, and you can talk with me directly or in the chat, however you wish to do it. Or you can call the hotline, which is... I don't even remember it off the top of my head. It'll be on the screen in a second. So Eva is saying, I'm sorry I can't watch Batman tonight. I'm super tired, been traveling all weekend. Oh darn. Yeah, Jan had been trying to do a group viewing of Batman Begins, which I would be happy to be a part of at some point, but looks like that's not happening today. Oh well. So the normal business, of course, is our book of the month for July is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I don't know how many of you out there have read this yet. I've read it, and I'm still trying to keep it fresh in my brain while I'm reading future books of the month to prepare for the coming months ahead. And we do have... we're going to have a change at the beginning of August. We'll have a new book of the month, and next weekend we'll be broadcasting from the floor at Comic-Con. So that should be fun. What is the? I'm sorry, I'm having little brain farts. The King is saying I'm planning on getting the audiobook of that. I'm assuming you mean Ready Player One, which I highly recommend. It's read by Will Wheaton, and he is clearly having a blast while doing it. It's one of the more fun audiobooks I've listened to. So I do highly recommend that. The hotline is 5304-FRODO. There you go. I wanted to begin the talk today with just some relative simple discussions about conventions. I've been going to many conventions since I was a teenager, since the early 90s, back in Philadelphia. And conventions are always a lot of fun. They're a great way to meet like-minded people. They're a great way to meet many of the creators that you admire. I do remember one of the very first comic conventions I went to, which was Comic Fest in Philadelphia. I think it was called Comic Fest, back in 1993, and Stan Lee was there. And this was before conventions were like the huge thing that everybody had to go to, and it was a relatively small convention. I know back in the day it felt like a very big convention, but compared to now it was a relatively small one. But this was the days when you could just walk from one panel to another, walk right in, and there wouldn't be any lines, there wouldn't be any crowds. You could just sit wherever you wanted to, and that's how I met Stan Lee. Just wandered into a panel about X-Men, and there he was, just sitting there talking about X-Men. And I was able to grab a seat right in the front row, and and it was a nice Q&A. This was, like I said, it was 93, so there was a lot of speculation at the time about there being an X-Men movie. And I remember Stan Lee specifically saying, there is no way you can make an X-Men movie. Like, he was saying he had read the screenplay, and it was just too much. The technology of the time just cannot make a movie like this. And now today we have, what, 8 X-Men movies? So it's kind of funny how in the space of just a little over 20 years, technology has gotten to this point where what we thought was completely impossible to make is now almost cliched. So, so Light of the King is asking, wonder if Stan Lee will have a Guardians cameo. I'm pretty sure he is going to have a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy. I believe they said that he is. I don't know what he will be, though. And Eregian is asking, have you seen the new X-Men movie? Of course I have, and I loved it. It may be my favorite X-Men movie to date. But of course the next one is going to be Apocalypse, which I really cannot wait for. Conventions as a whole have really evolved over the years from being just Jan is saying he lost his internet connection. Did Josh admit that The Dark Knight Rises is his all-time favorite movie? I have not. Nope, sorry. I have not admitted that, nor will I. Although that picture you emailed me, Jan, of your special collector's edition of it, that is a very cool package. I will not deny that. So back to conventions. They've always had a certain sense of a community about them, at least as far as I'm concerned. I went to a lot of anime conventions back in the day, when anime was still sort of on the fringes, hadn't really permeated the popular culture just yet. So it was a very different environment, and it was interesting to sort of see that evolve. And also in my career, I started actually working on anime titles and kind of lost interest in the genre altogether, probably from oversaturation. So I can no longer go to anime conventions without feeling just a little icky. Ava is asking, what would you say is your favorite con? The one that I love the most, and I haven't been to a wide variety of them lately, but the one that I enjoy the most right now is WonderCon, because it still has this nice community feel to it while still being large. It's not overwhelming. Comic-Con nowadays feels very overwhelming, and like many people, this year is probably going to be my last year going for quite a while. Mostly because the two reasons that I go to Comic-Con are for The Hobbit with Torn, of course, and also to help promote the Star Trek TNG Blu-rays, which I work on. Both of which, this is their last year. I'm working on the final season of TNG, so that'll be done this year. And this year is also the last year for the Hobbit movies. So after that, there isn't much of a reason for me to go, because the only other reasons that I go to conventions are to socialize and to network, which is one of the best reasons to go to a convention. And unfortunately at Comic-Con, it is so massive and so crazed that it's really hard to do that. Like, you sort of have to go there with a specific agenda and a specific schedule for the entire convention, or you get lost in a wave of people. Now, Light of the King had said a little bit ago that this is going to be her first, or she's never been to a convention before, but she is going to the Lake Town Luau, which Torn is going to be having on Friday. Yes. And that's going to be fun. It is now the sold out Lake Town Luau. We just sold out, I think, earlier today or maybe yesterday. So ticket sales are closed, which is phenomenal. Light of the King is also saying, I'm planning on going to the Star Wars Con in April 2015 in Anaheim. Oh yeah, the Star Wars celebration is in Anaheim in 2015. I was thinking about going to that, but I'm still sort of on the fence about Star Wars. I used to be a big fan, not as much anymore. I still enjoy it, but I'm not as crazy about it as I was before the prequels came out, for obvious reasons. So Jan is saying, you talked about Planet of the Apes on Facebook. I literally don't know anything about that franchise, but I just watched Rise of the Planet of the Apes today. Cool, that's a good way to start. That is a great movie. And I will talk about Planet of the Apes later on, because basically to sort of have some sort of discussion for today, since I can only talk about cons by myself for so long, I thought I'd talk about the Planet of the Apes franchise, which is it's in the zeitgeist again now with the new movie that just came out, and it's also a literary franchise, sort of. When I say it's a literary franchise, I mean that sort of in the same way that Die Hard is a literary franchise, in that the first movie is actually based on a book. The rest of it kind of creates its own mythology beyond that. But we'll get into that later. Jan is asking, have you ever seen PJ live at Comic-Con? Yes, I have. I met Peter Jackson a couple times actually at Comic-Con and at our Oscar parties, and at other events. I can't say I met him, but I did see him at the unveiling of the Smaug plane for the Desolation of Smaug late last year, and he was there, but we really didn't get to talk to him beyond waving and saying hi as he walked down the press line. But I have met him before and spoken to him and seen him live at Comic-Con, and he's a really cool guy. Light of the King is asking, what are some of the types of activities at, I'm guessing at Comic-Con, there's something censored there for some reason. Is it mostly panels or meet and greets with actors, etc.? Well, at a Comic-Con, panels are sort of a thing where you need to like really schedule and plan ahead, because practically any panel you want to go to at Comic-Con, there's going to be a line for, and you're going to have to wait to get into. And me personally, I don't have the patience for that. So what I usually do is I'm usually wandering around in the dealer's room, or I am outside at some of the various offsite events, which have become more and more popular over the years. And now it's to the point where you don't even need a pass to Comic-Con to enjoy Comic-Con, because there is so much stuff happening off-site in downtown San Diego. So Jan is asking, what did I say to Peter Jackson? Okay, I do have a funny story, and this was at the Return of the King Oscar party. What did I say? Okay, so it was just after Return of the King had just swept the Oscars, and we were preparing for everybody to arrive at our party, which they did. And Peter Jackson comes in, and we're shuffling him through to get him out onto the stage, and we're taking him through the VIP area, and I just say to him, like, congratulations on your big wins and everything, and he just turns to me and he says, thank you so much. I'd shake your hand, but I'm holding 3 Oscars. Or that is a terrible New Zealand accent, but you get the gist of what he was saying. So that I thought was pretty funny, which is That's sort of how Peter Jackson operates. He's very friendly with the fans, and the fact that even while we were rushing him from the limo to the stage, he still took out the time to just like say thank you to a fan, and that's what's so great about that. And a lot of the people that you will see at Comic-Con do have that attitude about them. There are a couple celebrities here and there who really just don't want to deal with the fans. They're just there to promote, and then they just move on. But a lot of them will do genuinely want to interact with the fans, and that usually can create a bit of a logistical nightmare for security. But at other times, it's just a lot of fun. So Jan is saying I have to move to the U.S. now. That would never happen here. Actually, most of the U.S. that would never happen. It's just here in L.A. where that sort of thing can sometimes happen. And like even as somebody who lives in Los Angeles, I don't have that many celebrity encounters, and I work at I'm even working at a studio, I don't have that many celebrity encounters. And Ravandir is here. Hello, Ravandir. Welcome. And so she's saying, sorry, was caught up in reading through Vampire the Masquerade books. Oh, those are fun. I think I've done a couple Vampire the Masquerade campaigns. The most fun I had with that was creating characters. So yeah, with Comic-Con in particular, there's a certain sense of urgency that you really don't find at many other conventions. When tickets go on sale, you need to be right on top of it because they sell out within minutes. When hotel reservations go up, you have to get in there right away to get on the waiting list or to get the reservations for the hotels you want because they go like hotcakes. And so it becomes this almost like a lottery, and everybody's scrambling to get what they want. Which to me sort of takes the fun out of it. Jan is saying, I'm sure PJ is watching this show all the time. That's why the trailer hasn't been released yet. Seriously. Well, I certainly hope that I am not the reason that Peter Jackson has not released the trailer yet. Light of the King is asking, how did Comic-Con get about movies and TV? What was the progression over the years? There's always been something of a movie and TV presence at Comic-Con, and this goes. The earliest one that I can remember is actually there being a panel and table at Comic-Con in 1976 for a weird upcoming movie that no one had heard about called Star Wars. And I remember, and I've seen pictures of it. Like, this actually happened. But there's always been a little bit of that presence, but it's gotten stronger over the years. And the big turning point, I think, was with the Lord of the Rings, when Peter Jackson and his crew really made a very calculated and deliberate effort to make a very strong presence at Comic-Con for the fans. And when other studios saw the reaction to that, then they all started bringing more of their stuff to it. Before then, it was kind of like you had booths that would have some props here and there, but after that, everybody sort of saw that this was the bandwagon to jump on, and everybody did. And so that's how Comic-Con sort of went from there to here. And now everybody is talking about how much they need the trailer. Yes. I really don't have anything else to say about the trailer except I am with you all. I want to see it. I want to see what this is going to look like. Do trailers have pockets? I don't know, but Peter Jackson's got it somewhere, and he needs to put it online. So later the king is saying, so Lord of the Rings started some of the trends at cons, etc. I would say that Lord of the Rings created made a lot of the other studios aware of what they could do, of this this sort of untapped market of a fan outreach, which today is sort of greeted with a bit of cynicism, like, oh, they're just playing to the fans, they're just pandering to us now, which, I mean, for some that's probably true, but I think for a lot of movies they really do want the fan input. They really do want to see the fan reactions. I know that Marvel is very much into hearing and seeing what the fans think and catering to that. Like, that's how we get a Guardians of the Galaxy movie of all things, which I can't wait for. So Lord of the Rings, yeah. Did Lord of the Rings start at Comic-Con? Let me just turn on the Skype. Okay, there we go. So Jan is saying Battle of Five Armies is out in Denmark 7 days before the U.S. I will join the show and spoil everything. That's awesome. Well, you better not, Jan. That's all I can say. I have a feeling a lot of us will probably be going to early screenings of this, of Battle of the Five Armies, and I will be keeping my mouth shut along with everybody else. Light of the King is saying, my dad always loved Star Trek and Planet of the Apes. We always said he would end up at a Trekkie convention, but never did. Trek conventions are a lot of fun. That's where I met a lot of Star Trek actors at some of the local conventions in Philadelphia. So I met James Doohan. Jan is asking, are the private screenings held at secret places? Not really. If you have the right access and you know where they are, like they're pretty easy to find. Rovandir is saying, I'm going to be in the front of the cinema like Gollum over the ring. And Aravandi says, my aunt has been to Trekkie conventions and got some of her fan art signed by the actors. Oh, that's cool. I like that they were willing to sign fan art. Because a lot of those conventions, especially now, they're very restrictive with what can and can't be signed. And usually you have to pay a rather hefty sum to get stuff signed these days. Yana is asking, do you literally sign an NDA? We didn't at the Desolation of Smaug screening, but we all were told very explicitly at the beginning of the screening, do not say anything about it online until after this specific date. And basically, like, saying your presence at the screening is your acknowledgement of this. So we didn't actually sign an NDA, but our presence being there guaranteed that we weren't allowed to say anything about it until after a specific date. Light of the King is saying, I saw the 17-minute trailer of Guardians at Disneyland last week, and it was amazing. I am so jealous. A lot of my friends went to that 17-minute trailer viewing, and it sounded like it was incredible. So yeah, that's the one that I'm definitely looking forward to the most. There are lots of other conventions that I haven't been able to go to that I really want to go to, and I think now, after this year, now that I'm no longer going to be going to Comic-Con, I'm going to try to open myself up to going to other conventions. I feel like I really missed out on Fantasy Con. It sounded like it was an amazing time, and I definitely want to. I definitely want to go to that one next year. Region is asking favorite movie of all time. That is a tough question. I mean, Lord of the Rings is definitely up there for me. And I'm one of those people who considers Lord of the Rings to be one humongous movie as opposed to three separate movies. Because they were all shot at the same time. They all have a continuous storyline. They all they flow together very well. They have the same aesthetic throughout. So it is kind of like watching the same movie. It's like watching just one long movie broken into three parts. So Jan is saying it's The Dark Knight Rises. It is not The Dark Knight Rises, although I will say The Dark Knight, the one before it, definitely ranks up there for me. Jan is saying, what did you see Transformers 4 the other day? Sure, it's Michael Bay and it's mostly explosions, but those explosions are pretty damn awesome. Yeah, they are. I'm not a big fan of the Transformers franchise. I saw the first one in theaters and was not very impressed by it, and so I didn't bother to see any of the others in theaters. I saw them later on a video on demand and still didn't really see the appeal. Like, yes, they are mostly explosions, and they are good explosions, but if I'm going to pay $15-$20 for a movie, I want more than just explosions. That's just me. So some of my favorite movies are Lord of the Rings. The Dark Knight is definitely one of them. Let's see, what else have I got over there in my collection? Oh, I love. Yeah, there's so many really good ones. Like I love Blade Runner and The Godfather. And what is this? Light of the King is asking, random movie question. I know you like the Ender's Game book, but what did you think of the movie? I have it recorded on my DVR right now, but wanted to get your thoughts. I did not like it. I'll be honest with you. I didn't like the Ender's Game movie. It gets a lot of the story beats correct, but the heart is completely gone. The characters are very wooden. The battle room is not explained very well. It tends to sort of jump from one plot point to the next without much to sort of fill the spaces in between. So it feels like a very empty and hollow movie. And the twist at the end, the climax, is really not as devastating a reveal as it was in the book. So I was very disappointed in the Ender's Game movie. That's just me. Take that for what it is. If you wanna see it, I wouldn't say don't see it. It's a pretty good book, or it's a pretty good movie visually, but just don't expect anything mind-blowing about it. And Light of the King also says, I think Asa Butterworth is such a good actor, and he is, but unfortunately I feel like he's wasted in this. And that's the same with a lot of the talent in this movie. They're not allowed to like really bring their all to it. A lot of the heart is not there in that movie. And Region is saying, you wrote this book about Ben Franklin and time traveling. I'm sorry, what's it called again? It's called Men. Why didn't you write another book, or did you? I have not. I've been working on a couple of things, but the career that actually pays the bills had really sort of took the forefront for a good long while. So I haven't really been able to dedicate my time to writing another book. But what I am doing is I am doing a rewrite of Ben that I want to republish, which I'm working on right now, and I'm hoping that will help spur me into writing other things. So expect that at some point. That's all I can really say at this point. Light of the King is also saying, also loved Logan's Run, Neverending Story, and Labyrinth, all old school, and Legend. And yeah, they're all great. I love all of those movies. Although, like, I just rewatched Neverending Story not too long ago, and there were some bits to that sort of took me aback. Like, I guess maybe looking at it with a more critical eye now, I was like, okay, why does their school have why does Bastian's school have an attic full of all this really creepy stuff? Why and Falcor actually comes off as kind of creepy, looking at it again. Like, I was watching with a bunch of friends, and we were all sort of, like, loudly speculating and talking to each other as the movie was playing, like, sort of doing a Mystery Science Theater thing with it. And as we're doing this and we're, like, pointing out these flaws, we're like, wait a minute, that's actually a valid point. So Ava is saying, Labyrinth is one of my all-time favorite movies. And I love Labyrinth. That's another one that I do need to rewatch. It's been a long time. Same with Legend. And somehow we've gotten on to favorite movies now, which is fine. That's cool. So yeah, I really like Legend. I think I saw Logan's Run when I was like a kid, like probably when I was too young to really understand it. So I do need to give that one another look. So yeah, what are some of your favorite movies out there, since we seem to be on this subject? And I'll also begin steering the conversation towards Planet of the Apes. I'm going to try to keep this this episode to about an hour or so, since there isn't that much to talk about. And once we're done, I need to get back to preparing for Comic-Con and for the Lake Town Luau and all that, all of our fun stuff. We do have, let me just give you a quick rundown of where you can find Torn and what Torn will be doing at Comic-Con. On Thursday at 5 o'clock in the Indigo Ballroom at the Hilton Bayfront, we'll be having our panel, our unofficial look at the Battle of the Five Armies, which we do every year and for every movie. I'm probably not going to be on this panel, but I will be at the panel. And then the next night, Friday night, is our Lake Town Luau at the Kona Kai Resort, which you'll be able to take a shuttle bus to, which is now sold out, which is amazing. So thank you all to everybody who has bought tickets. You're helping to keep Torn alive by coming to these parties. So thank you. And then throughout the con, we will be sharing some space with Weta. So you'll be able to go to the Weta booth at just about any given time and probably see at least a couple of us there. Other than that, me specifically, I'll be at the Torn panel. Like I said, I may not be on it, but I will be at it. And I will be at the Lake Town Luau. Light of the King is asking, will they webcast the panel or archive it? I would say probably more archive than a webcast, because Comic-Con does have certain restrictions about that sort of thing. They may have let up this year. I really don't know. I would say don't count on a webcast of the panel, but there will probably be webcasts throughout the weekend, from the floor and around the convention. And Haravandi is saying, since when is a last something to be censored? Yeah, the censorship thing on here is very weird. So Rovandir is saying is going to a con in 10-ish days. Well, which con is that? Because it's obviously not a Comic-Con, because it'll be over in 10-ish days. And Jan is saying, Pirates of the Caribbean is one of my favorites. Jack Sparrow is one of the best movie characters of all time. I like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I like Jack Sparrow. I don't think that Jack Sparrow works as a lead character. To me, he is a much stronger support character. What is Aravandi saying? No webcast might be for the best since I spent way too much time watching the last one. Yeah. What can I say? We do good webcasting, especially from conventions. I like Jack Sparrow. I don't think he is the strongest lead character. Rovandir is going to Genki Con, a small con in Denmark, or small as it's the second largest, but still considered small when looking at cons in other countries. Well, it can't be that small because I've actually heard of Genki Con. It's in Denmark, so I've obviously never gone, but I have heard of it. So yeah, that's a decent sized con if people out here have heard of it. So yeah, let's talk a little Apes, shall we? As many of you are probably aware, the latest movie, what does the word Genki mean? It's Japanese. It means feeling good. Essentially. So talking about Planet of the Apes, as you know, the new movie Dawn of the Planet of the Apes came out this past weekend, which I loved. I thought it was a fantastic movie, and of course it does have a connection to Lord of the Rings with Andy Serkis, who is playing the character Caesar in the last two Apes movies, and he does such a phenomenal job in this. Ava is saying, I never really liked Planet of the Apes before, but now I'm a fan after the 2011 movie. I agree. Like, there are a lot of people who became fans after Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and yeah, that's a good thing, because I like I'm glad that it's sort of bringing people into this very interesting mythology. I'm gonna have to be honest here. Light of the King is asking, did any of you watch the show from the 70s? That was the one thing that I was not able to get my hands on when I was researching Apes. I read the book. I watched all of the other movies, including the abysmal Tim Burton 2001 movie. But I wasn't able to find a copy of the TV series. I just read a quick synopsis, and it sounded kind of weird, to be honest. Rovandir is saying, the Planet of the Apes always scared me, so I've been avoiding it. It's understandable. They can be kind of scary. So going back to the beginning of it, and okay, I'll also mention that there are other Lord of the Rings connections to Planet of the Apes beyond just the Andy Serkis connection. They're a little bit more obscure, a little bit more esoteric, but I will point them out to you. One of them is many of the classic Apes movies. The score was done by a man named Leonard Rosenman, who also provided the score for the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie. And then another one is in the fifth movie, Battle for the Planet of the Apes. There is a character in there named the Lawgiver, who pretty much bookends the movie with narration. But he is played by John Huston, who was the voice of Gandalf in the Rankin Bass Hobbit and Return of the King movies. And for me, it's still hard to hear that voice and not immediately think Gandalf, even though John Huston is much better known for the movies that he directed. And I mean, he's an icon. But yet, whenever I hear him speak, I immediately think Gandalf. And Jan is saying the Harry Potter connection, Tom Felton was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And yes, he was. And oh my god, all of the Draco Malfoy jokes you can make in that movie. Because he is essentially playing Draco Malfoy if he were a muggle. That's pretty much the best way to describe him. So those are some other Lord of the Rings connections to the Planet of the Apes movies. Now, originally, the Planet of the Apes was a book. It's a short book, and you can still find it you can still buy it, and it's a French book written by a man named Pierre Boulle, who he was a novelist. He's got a pretty good list of titles, but the two books that he is best known for are Planet of the Apes and The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which you may know as being adapted into the David Lean film Bridge on the River Kwai, which was a big Oscar winner and is a classic movie, and it's all based on Pierre Boulle's. It's a semi-autobiographical book about his experience as a POW in World War II. So Pierre Boulle was not really a sci-fi writer, and it shows in the book. The book itself is very high concept. Let's just check the Skype real quick, see if anybody is there. Okay, nope, Skype is okay. The very, and Jan is saying Andrew Lesnie was also the DP of the first one, of Rise. Yes, he was. And in fact, Weta did all of the ape effects for Rise and for Dawn. A lot of the team returned for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and their motion capture technology has only gotten better with age. And so has Andy Serkis's talents. So there are a lot of like really good connections here. So going back to the storyline, the book deals primarily with this idea of time dilation, which is part of the theory of relativity, where if you travel to near the speed of light, you will time will start to shift around you. Like what may be a year for you will be 100 years for everybody else. So Light of the King is saying people are saying Oscar for Andy. I hope so. This man has been shafted way too often for the Oscar with his amazing talent that he's brought to bear 3 times with Gollum, and 3 times with ape characters, 2 in Planet of the Apes and King Kong. And he's done a stupendous job, but I would say his performance in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes as Caesar is probably one of the most amazing things I have ever seen him do, and I am not exaggerating there. Um, so, back to the ideas here in the original Planet of the Apes. So it centers around the idea that if you travel near the speed of light, time will go much faster for everything else around you. Like, a few days for you will be a few years for everybody who isn't traveling with you. A few years for you will be a couple hundred years for everybody not traveling with you, and so on and so forth. And so it centers around this expedition to the star Betelgeuse. And the idea is to take a ship. Takes a year to accelerate up to near the speed of light, and then from there just taking however long it takes in to get to Betelgeuse, which I think is just a couple of years at near the speed of light, given the distance. I don't remember the exact distance between here and Betelgeuse, and then spend a year decelerating to get to that system and to just explore and see what kind of planets there are. And so they do that, and through time dilation, they are now a few hundred years into Earth's future. And they land on this planet orbiting Betelgeuse, which is sort of in the Goldilocks zone, is very Earth-like, and they land on the planet and discover that it is populated by walking, talking, sentient apes. And not only that, but that the humans on the planet do not speak, and they are pretty much sort of a slave race. They're almost pets. He was saying, did you say Beetlejuice? Yes, and I think that's 3 times. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So they're on this planet where it seems like evolution has sort of gone in a different route, because the concept that they're sort of exploring is the idea that apes and humans have a common ancestor, and at one point they diverge, and you have the humans who become the dominant species on our planet, while apes sort of stay relatively stagnant in their evolution. And then on this planet, that same divergence happens, but instead it's the humans who sort of don't evolve into higher-minded thinking, and they don't form speech. Meanwhile, it's the apes who evolve all of that and become the dominant species on the planet. And so it's kind of like looking at a weird mirror image of the Earth. And you have the main guy, who in the book his name is Ulysses, which is sort of a French Ulysses or Julius, and he begins to communicate with the apes, which basically throws the entire society into chaos, because up until that point there has never been a talking human. It just doesn't happen. And he begins to interact with a scientist named Zira, who is a female chimpanzee. Now, I should mention that the ape society is divided into 3 tiers, which are essentially 3 different species. There are the gorillas, the chimpanzees, and the orangutans. And they all have their own specific qualities. The gorillas are the more militaristic type. The orangutans are sort of slower, more more status quo type people, and then the chimpanzees, who are the more independently minded, the more progressive thinking type. And so basically what you have is gorillas in the military, orangutans in government, and chimpanzees in science. And so he begins to speak to this one scientist named Zira, who is the one who is like sort of willing to accept this idea that we have a talking human, and this could mean many, many other things. And he eventually brings her fiance Cornelius into it as well. And meanwhile, they're being stymied by an orangutan official named Zaius, who sort of sees this as an aberration that doesn't really throw what they know of history into question. And so he's trying to sweep it all under the rug. And one of the things that the apes do is they do experiments on human brains. And while they're doing this, there's also an archaeological expedition which uncovers an ancient city. And it's in that city they discover evidence that humans were once dominant. And as they start putting the pieces together, they also are doing experiments on this one human's brain. And they discover that within this one human's brain is sort of like genetic memory of the history of their world. And like I said, this is like, it's questionable science, but what they do is they tap into that, and they start getting recounts of sort of a time when humans were the dominant people on the planet, and that apes were subservient, they were pets, they were experimented on, they were slaves. And then as time moved on, humans became so sedentary with their technology. They became sort of lazy, and as a result, they began to de-evolve, while the apes began to evolve further to try to get themselves out of their own situation, and eventually turning the tables. And things just escalated from there to the point where we now have an ape society that is dominant, and humans that are subservient. What is Lady the King saying? Cognitions say that the human brain has perfect memory, it's just the recall that is bad. It has to go through multiple channels, and that is what clutters the process. And that may be so, but what this book is saying is not only does this person have her own memories, but she also has archival memories from thousands of years in the past, which I don't really think happens, at least not to that degree, where with just like a little poking and prodding, like she can recall anecdotes from thousands of years ago. But regardless, that's what paints this picture, that humans were dominant, apes were subservient, and then eventually the tables got turned. And meanwhile, the main guy, Ulysses, ends up breeding with a local human woman named Nova, and she gets pregnant, and so meanwhile, Ulysses is also becoming something of a celebrity, as like the talking human. Come see the talking human. We have to hear what he has to say, and but then, of course, other people see him as a threat and are trying to push him under the carpet. And so eventually it gets to the point where he realizes he needs to leave if he wants to survive, and especially if he wants any sort of life for his child. so so Cornelius and Zira help smuggle him back to his ship, or they smuggle him onto a satellite launch, which will then take him to his ship, which is still in orbit, and then he can do the near light travel back to Earth. And so eventually he does that. And one of the big frustrations that he's had this whole time is that he can't get Nova to speak. He can't get her to go beyond her own intuitions. But all that changes after the child is born, and she begins learning how to speak, and as the child is learning how to speak, and so she becomes more and more like a human that we would see today, especially on the trip back, which takes a couple of years. And then when they finally get back to Earth, and this is the big shocker downer ending, is they arrive back on Earth and discover that it is now controlled by apes. And with the time dilation going back and forth between Earth and Betelgeuse, probably I'd say about 1,000 years have passed on Earth. And so in that time, whatever happened on this planet then happened on Earth. And it's kind of a downer ending, because that's where the book ends. And so that was made into a movie in 1968. And it was starring Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall as Cornelius, and it does have the characters of Nova, Cornelius, Zira, and Zaius. Light of the King is asking, is it spelled Betelgeuse? Yes. The way you spelled it is correct. That's the name of the star. Spelling it Betelgeuse is the name of the Michael Keaton character. So the first movie is essentially an adaptation of the book, and Light of the King is asking, and the screenplay was written by Rod Serling. It was co-written by him. He wrote a treatment for it, and yes, Rod Serling did play a part in writing it. He wrote a treatment, but what he called for was a bit too ambitious for the technology of the time, so they had to tone a lot of stuff back. And one of the big changes they made in the movie, which is, of course, the big twist ending, is that he discovers at the very end that they haven't been on an alien planet. They've been on Earth this whole time, and they've gone through some weird spatial anomaly that spat them back at Earth thousands of years later. And Ava is asking, has there been any talk about how many movies will be in this new Apes franchise? There haven't been. I know that the third one has been greenlit pretty much like right away after Dawn did so well at the box office. So there will be another one. Where it's going to take place, I don't know. I am kind of hoping that they will... that they'll do a remake of the original story in this new universe that they've established, because this would be one of the most amazing Planet of the Apes movies that we had ever seen, if that could be done with this technology and in this universe, where we've actually seen the progression of the shift of power. And that's essentially what it is. It's a shift of power. And it's a shift of dominance. And so with the first movie, the big twist was not that he goes away and comes back, and what he has witnessed on this other planet has now happened on Earth. The big twist is it was Earth the entire time, and that was and that's the big reveal scene with the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand and Charlton Heston screaming, "Damn you all to hell!" Which, interestingly enough, this movie has 3 of Charlton Heston's most memorable quotes in it. There's "Damn you all to hell." There's "Get your paws off me, you get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty apes," and "It's a madhouse." And all done with Charlton Heston's signature, ridiculous, over-the-top acting. I love Heston, but that he was a man who was made for grand performances and nothing else. There's very little subtlety to a Charlton Heston performance. So yeah, Light of the King is saying, I just looked at the wiki of Planet of the Apes, and Marvel made a magazine back in the 70s. That's not surprising. Because Planet of the Apes was a big franchise back in the 70s. Like, there were toys, there were magazines, there were lunchboxes, like everything. Which is why there were also 5 movies. And so the other movies in the franchise, if you watch them, you'll see they're done on a much lower budget, because back then in the 70s, sequels were not known as big money makers, not the way they are today. They're usually seen as sort of less than the original. They never did as well. So if there was potential for some money to be made from a sequel, they would do it, but they wouldn't invest as much in it. So what you see in the sequels is a decrease in quality, in production value. And so the second one, another thing I should mention is most of these Apes movies have really dark endings. Because the first one ends with him discovering that he was on Earth the entire time, and that's how it ends. Like, there's nothing beyond that. Jan is saying, who will be the first to win an Oscar, Serkis or DiCaprio? I believe DiCaprio already has won an Oscar. I could be mistaken. I don't know. I don't really keep up on that. And Lady of the King is also saying, I had a Kiss lunchbox. Nice. So the second movie in the franchise is Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which continues the story with a lot less Charlton Heston because they could no longer afford him. So he's just in the beginning and just at the end, and the rest of it centers on another character named Brent, who is about as close to a Charlton Heston lookalike as you can get, who basically goes through essentially sort of the same process of discovery that Heston's character had gone through. And he was on... And Jan is saying DiCaprio has only been nominated, and that's why it's so funny. Okay, fair enough. I usually don't keep up on the Oscars all that much. I'm not a huge fan of that. Leo has 5 nominations, no wins. Okay. Serkis has no nominations, so Leo is ahead of him there. Which really is disappointing because Andy Serkis should have at least been nominated for several of his roles. So with Beneath the Planet of the Apes, this is where we start to sort of create its own. The movies start to create its own mythology, and what they do is they begin to explore more of what exactly happened. And this is where I sort of feel like the whole franchise sort of goes off in a very weird direction. because what they discover is that there are humans on Earth who are still able to speak, but they live underground in the ruins of New York City, and they're all disfigured from nuclear fallout, and they all worship a nuclear bomb. What is going on here? Light of the King says, I think that sci-fi fantasy actors get overlooked time and again. Bummer. I think it's more than that with Andy Serkis. I think that there is, I don't want to say a stigma, but there is this sort of old guard thinking when it comes to acting with motion capture, where it's considered, I think the digital aspect of it is considered a crutch, or that you're not seeing all of the performance in it, which I don't agree with at all. I like when you see Gollum, you know that is Andy Serkis doing that. When you see Caesar, you know that is Andy Serkis doing that. And I mean, the technology is phenomenal, and I don't want to downplay that at all. But it's very much a blending of the two, and it's as much performance as it is an effect. And I think what we have is sort of a disconnect between the two. And Jan is saying, Bad Grandpa was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Makeup and Hairstyling, and Desolation of Smaug wasn't. Yeah, it was not a good year for The Hobbit that year. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit better for Battle of the Five Armies. But, we've seen one picture. We haven't even seen a trailer yet. I have no idea what to expect for this movie, other than what was in the book. Light of the King says, the actors are doing the work, the technology is complementing their work. And yeah, like that's like the best way to describe it. But I think that there is this disconnect in this in the old guard way of thinking in the Academy, and you see that not just with Andy Serkis and the work that he's doing, but you also see that in the Emmys, particularly. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but with Orphan Black and Tatiana Maslany, who has been denied a nomination twice for what I consider to be some of the most amazing work I have ever seen done by an actor on TV. She is playing 5 different characters on this show, each one of which are completely unique, completely distinctive, and you know exactly which one is which just from looking at them. That is how distinct she is, even to the point where she can have one of those characters try to impersonate another character, and you can tell that it's an impersonation. So like it's this crazy meta thing that she is doing, and it's some of the most amazing work I have ever seen. But it's sort of been ignored, I think, because of the digital aspect of having to combine all of these different performances onto one screen. And so it's sort of like, or having to use body doubles in certain scenarios. So they're seeing this again as a kind of a crutch, when really it is like some of the most amazing acting you will ever see. And Ava is saying Andy Serkis kept calling motion capture performance capture, and I think he prefers that. And you know what? That's a very good distinction, Ava, and you're right. And it is very much a performance capture. And I think one of the most fascinating things that I saw with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is there's if you look for it on YouTube, you can find just a reel of a B-roll from the movie where it's a lot of the characters, a lot of the actors in their motion capture suits on set performing. And so getting to see that really just shows like the kind of work that not only Andy but everybody is doing in this, because there are a lot of ape characters in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And one of them in particular is a character named Koba, who is sort of the antagonist ape in Dawn, but he's a character who has a good motivation. Like he has a background of being beaten and tortured in animal control centers in in zoos and stuff like that. So he's scarred. He hates humans. He doesn't trust them, and he thinks that Caesar is leading them down a wrong path by working with the humans. And so he's this very angry ape character. And there's a scene in Dawn. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a scene where he calls out Caesar and confronts him and sort of gives into his rage. And seeing this B-roll and seeing the actor playing Koba, before they've added all the digital stuff, all the ape to him, and just seeing him in the motion capture suit and performing that, he is downright scary. Like this man is giving his all to this performance, and it shows. And Jan is saying Koba was also in Rise, and yes, he was. He doesn't play as big a role in Rise. Like he's like the second ape that they try the serum on, and his big moment is when he kills the guy running the chemical company, the pharmaceutical company. And Jan is saying, I would love to meet Andy Serkis. He seems like a really great guy. And this is where I'm going to name drop a little bit. I have, and he is. So yeah. So what's interesting with the mythology of the classic Planet of the Apes movies is that in Beneath, after like everything else happening, all the discovery happens, and they discover that there are humans who are worshiping a bomb. And not only is it a bomb, it is the bomb. It is the world destroyer. And they don't quite realize that. And so the apes are tracking this guy, Brent, who discovers the secret human society, and therefore the apes discover the secret human society, and it causes an invasion and a war, and the humans really, the only option they have is to detonate this bomb. And even they're not aware that this bomb will destroy the world. Like, it won't just blow up their area, it will blow up the planet. But Brent realizes it, and Charlton Heston comes back at the end, and because he's been imprisoned with them, and he tells them that he knows it. And so you have this big shootout, and one by one, every character gets killed off until finally you just have Charlton Heston left. He's bleeding out, and his last moment, he detonates the bomb and blows up the planet. The end. So again, another very dark ending. and so Jan wants to know the story of me meeting Andy Serkis. Okay, I will tell you the story real quick. Let's see. And Light of the King is saying the actor who played Koba is Toby Kebbell, who played a soldier in War Horse and also will be Doctor Doom in the new Fantastic Four movie. I didn't know that. That's very cool. He plays a great villain. I would love to see him as Doctor Doom. And Arabandi says, but I thought your movie bombing was a bad thing. Wah, wah. Okay, so the Andy Serkis story. This was, This was at the line party for the Two Towers. This is how far back this goes. So at that point, none of us had seen his performance as Gollum. We'd only just heard a couple little bits of him going, "My precious," like that, and I was and he visited the line shortly before we were all going to go in to see the movie. And we were filming some stuff. This was before we had Torn Live, and so everything that was being shot was actually just being recorded and put together. And I don't think this ever made the cut because it was so terrible. I was talking with Andy. For some reason, I was the guy interviewing him, even though it was just like really quick. And I have been working on my own voice acting for a while, and one of the things that I had focused on was Gollum. And I was deriving it more from the performance from the BBC audio drama, which is a very different type of Gollum than what Andy Serkis did. He does a lot of hissing, and he has a very throaty kind of talk, that was really bad. Like, if you listen to it, it's a very different Gollum voice, and so like I just sort of offhandedly mentioned I've been working on my own Gollum voice, and he's like, "Oh, really? Why don't you show me?" And I was like, No. I am not about to perform Gollum for Gollum. But he talked me into it, and I did like a little bit, and that was it. And I was utterly mortified. But he was very kind about it. He's like, "That's not bad," even though I knew like that was terrible. That was the world's worst Gollum, and I just did it in front of Andy Serkis. So yeah, that's my Andy Serkis story. Somewhere it's in an archive somewhere. I don't think it ever made it online, and if it did, I will burn the internet. I'm not kidding. So anyway, back to the classic Planet of the Apes movies. The classic Apes movies, like there were so we have two, and the second one ends with the world being destroyed. So where exactly do you go in the next three that happened? Basically what you do is you go back to Earth in the past. In the third movie, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, we are greeted by a ship landing outside Los Angeles in the 70s. And on the ship are the characters Cornelius, Zira, and their friend Milo, who we've never met before. And they say apparently they saw where everything was going. They saw the war that was happening, so they had developed their own spaceship based on the ruins of what they had of what Charlton Heston had arrived in, and built their own spaceship. And as they launched, the world got it. The world blew up, and somehow that launched them into the spatial anomaly that brought Taylor and Brent to their time, and sent them back in time to the 1970s. And so now they're in Earth of the past. And basically, in Escape from the Planet of the Apes, you have all the stuff in the original book, Planet of the Apes, that they couldn't do in the original movie, only now the roles are reversed. So you have Cornelius and Zira becoming celebrities and showing the world that they can talk. And then you have a human character who doesn't trust them and is able to put Zira under and get her to talk about their future and how they're going to and how eventually the world is going to be destroyed because of a war between apes and humans, and how apes are eventually going to overtake the human race. And he tries to take this to the president, saying, we need to stop this. This is going to happen. And the president is basically like, yeah, it's going to happen, but not in our lifetime, so we're not going to worry about it. But this guy is very dogged about it. And so eventually he tries to hunt them down. He gets the clearances he needs to label them as a threat, and that's when we realize that also Zira is pregnant. Again, like a parallel to the original story. And then again, we have the dark ending, where they're spirited away to a circus that is run by Ricardo Montalban, who is freaking awesome. I'm not gonna lie. Ricardo Montalban is awesome in anything he ever did, but he is particularly awesome in this. And that's where Zira gives birth, and they name him Milo after their friend who had died accidentally earlier in the movie. But they also know that they would create too much of they would create a target for the circus, so they leave the circus and eventually get hunted down, and both Zira and Cornelius get killed. Again, like, just another really dark ending. And the movie ends with Ricardo Montalban back at the circus with the baby who they have hidden, this baby chimp, and the last shot is him saying "Mama," so he will grow up to speak. And then we go into Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, which Rise of the Planet of the Apes is sort of loosely based on, because the child Milo, he is now grown up. This is about 20 years later, and he's also changed his name to Caesar. This is who Caesar is in these movies. And so he's a fully functioning talking ape, but he also needs to be kept in secret because society has drastically changed. A virus has spread throughout the world that has killed off all the cats and dogs, and so humanity, who of course need pets because we do, we turn to apes as pets, and then soon realize that we can train them to be slaves as well. So they become this slave class of waiters and barbers, and basically like all the entire service industry is run by slave apes who are trained through various forms of torture. And eventually Caesar needs to he gets discovered because he sees an ape being brutalized and he accidentally yells out. And so Ricardo Montalban tries to hide him by having him smuggle himself in with some newly captured apes and go into the ape control center. Meanwhile, Ricardo Montalban is being interrogated by the government, and he eventually kills himself to keep Caesar's secret. So it's not a happy story. and, and so then Caesar finds himself in this ape training facility, and just like in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, he begins to he begins working with the apes to sort of build a rebellion, and eventually it gets to the point where they begin the rebellion, and the ape uprising happens, and much like in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and Caesar like really sort of gives into his rage, and he is about to have all the apes brutally beat one of the humans to death, and it's another ape, I believe her name is Lucy, who is the ape that Caesar has sort of developed an affection for, even though she is another one of she's one of the lower thinking apes. Like she doesn't speak. None of them speak except for Caesar. Running joke about all the movies my dad watches. Hey Dad, how was the movie? Oh, they all died. Yep. That's kind of like how that's kind of how the Planet of the Apes movies are. But another parallel to Rise is one of the apes, Lucy, finally speaks by saying to Caesar, "No." Much like how Caesar screams "no" at Tom Felton's character, and that convinces Caesar to change his ways and not brutally wipe out humanity. And so then that goes on to Battle of the Planet of the Apes, which is the last one of the classic series, which Dawn also kind of mirrors, particularly with the standing rule that apes do not kill apes. And so we have this new ape society that Caesar has built, and they're sort of working hand in hand with humans. There are a couple humans that he trusts who he keeps around in their ape city. But it's also kind of weird because there's another character in it named Virgil. Now you have to remember that this is only 10 years after the apes, aside from Caesar, had just learned to speak, and in that time, in these 10 years, they've developed a society, and this one character, Virgil, is now an astrophysicist, even though like 10 years ago he couldn't even speak. Without going too much into it, because I've already talked about it long enough, that it eventually like comes down to some human holdouts discover the ape city and want to destroy it. Meanwhile, you have a guerrilla general who wants to make war on the humans, but Caesar won't allow it, and so he wants to start up his own rebellion and oust Caesar, and this eventually results in this ape general murdering Caesar's son in order to cover up his conspiracy. And so it all eventually comes out that this was the guy who killed Caesar's son. And they have their big confrontation, and it's and it's a lot like what happens in Dawn, and I won't go too much into that for those who haven't seen Dawn yet, but it kind of ends the same way, except that in this one it actually has a happy ending, because then at the end, after all is said and done, we then flash forward a couple thousand years to the lawgiver telling the story of Caesar, and we see that he is talking to a crowd of both humans and apes living together in harmony. And there's a big statue to Caesar. So it's so essentially Caesar has changed history, and now there is this new society of humans and apes living together, as opposed to one being dominant and one being subservient. And that's how those end. And then we go into the horrible, horrible, god awful, horrible Tim Burton movie, which basically takes everything that was unique and interesting about this story and removes it entirely. And I really can't fault Tim Burton for all of this, because you can sort of get the feeling from watching this movie that this was not a movie that he wanted to make. This was something that he signed on to do. It was not his style. It was not his sensibility. It felt like a movie that he was forced to make, or a movie that he had a certain idea for, but was changed along the way. And the thing with Tim Burton is that he always likes to add his own personal take on anything he's adapting. And you see that with all of his remakes, or all of his adaptations, like Alice in Wonderland, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or Dark Shadows. Ugh. That movie was so bad. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And in Planet of the Apes, I didn't feel that it worked very well, because one of the things that they got rid of almost right away is that on this planet, the apes and the humans both speak. And they're both aware that each other speaks. And I find it very hard to believe that any society would be willing to subjugate a species that can communicate with them on the same level. Because it would feel too weird. And you also have these characters that are sort of mirrors and also exaggerations of the characters from the original. Like, you have the character that Helena Bonham Carter plays, named Ari, who is essentially Zira and Cornelius mixed together, only like to the nth degree, because not only is she somebody who is progressive, she is like an active and very angry member of a human rights movement. And then you have the opposite of that, the Zaius character, who is sort of brought to life in this General Thade, who is played by Tim Roth. And again, he is that same character, only to the nth degree. Like, he's not just somebody who sees humans as subservient. He is somebody who straight up hates humans. Like he wants them all exterminated. He sees, and it's all because he thinks that he's in love with Ari, and he believes that Ari loves humans more than she loves him. And so he has like this personal vendetta against humans. And what you also have in this, and it's one of the worst things I have ever seen, is you have Charlton Heston in ape makeup playing Thade's father, who is basically dying in bed. And his last lines are, "Damn them all to hell." And Light of the King is saying, "I don't like the Tim Burton spin on this. Sort of reminds me of the Beowulf movie where Beowulf and Grendel's mom's baby is a dragon." Yeah, that was not that great. That was the Zemeckis movie. So basically what you have happen is like, you have Mark Wahlberg plays the main guy. His name is Daniels in this one, and what basically happens is he's on a ship that is training chimps through genetic manipulation and also through just standard training. They're training chimps to pilot spaceships. Basically, in order for them to be scouts for spatial anomalies to make sure that they're okay for humans to go to. So, like a canary in a coal mine sort of thing. Which is kind of silly because no matter what you do, you end up wasting an entire ship. What the King is saying, I think some stories can have creative stretching, but certain stories need to have the main integrity of the story kept. I agree with that. And actually, one of the things to the Tim Burton movie's credit is that the ending is actually more in line with the book in certain aspects, but in other aspects even further afield. Because it's never really established that he's on Earth this time around. He goes through a spatial anomaly, gets zapped into the future, lands on the ape planet, but then also discovers that the main ship that he was on also gets caught in this spatial anomaly and is sent to the same planet but at a different time, and all the trained apes on the ship basically become the ape society of this planet. So essentially this planet had neither humans nor apes on it until the ship crashed on it. And I mean that's an interesting idea, but it also isn't in line with the main crux of the story. And so eventually one thing leads to another, and Mark Wahlberg launches his ship and tries to get back to Earth. And this is where the movie actually keeps in line with the ending of the book. He goes back to Earth, and he gets to Earth, he crashes, and discovers that Earth is now run by apes. But it's not because of time dilation. It's because at some point that we never see, General Thade, the main villain of the movie, has somehow gotten on a ship, launched it, and gone into the anomaly, and gone back to Earth at an even earlier point in history, and completely changed human history. So that's where we see the Lincoln Memorial with Thade's face on it. And essentially it's like basically setting up a sequel that was never ever going to happen. Because what we're essentially missing is like this main plot point of the last we see of Thade, he is trapped in a room and somehow has not died. Because he's discovered guns, and he eventually gets trapped in a room, and he starts trying to shoot his way out. Not only are the walls bulletproof, they also cause tons of ricochets, and somehow in this mass of bullet ricochets that are happening in this tiny room, he does not get hit. And that's the last we see of him. And then at the very end, he has somehow gone back into Earth's past and changed Earth's history. And so it sort of leaves you just like going, what? Rather than the revelation of either in the distant future of Earth, the same thing that he saw on the planet happened on Earth, or that it was Earth the entire time. Now it's just like we're missing something here. So it was really not a good movie. And they also they really like try to cram in a lot of references to the original that just feel very forced. Excuse me. Having Charlton Heston say damn them all to hell" as he's dying, or having one of the ape general characters played by Michael Clark Duncan saying, "Get your dirty hands off me! Get your stinking hands off me, you damn dirty human!" Like it's just like one of those things that just sort of makes you roll your eyes. And so that franchise reboot really just sort of fell flat, and rightly so. I don't think I would have wanted to see another movie in that franchise. And then many years later, then we get Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which is one of those movies that I think surprised everybody, because what we had was just a string of low budget cheesy sequels. We have one like really good movie that is like part of like the American lexicon of film mythology, followed by 4 okay sequels, but really kind of have a weird mythology and are very low budget and are kind of laughable. You have a TV series that lasted 13 episodes. You have a cartoon series that lasted 13 episodes, neither of which were really considered all that great to begin with. Then you have a remake that was pretty much universally panned and bombed horribly. And so at this point you're thinking, okay, Planet of the Apes is a tired old franchise. It like, and yet they're making another one. And I will tell you, like, I had no idea that it was happening until Weta on Facebook posted pretty much like a 2 or 3 second clip of Caesar, and it was just Caesar just turning and looking at the camera, but it was with all that new technology and the performance capture that Andy Serkis was using. And so even just like that one look was so expressive, it just made me it made a lot of us just stop and think and go, whoa, is this really happening? And then the movie came out, and it really did sort of like blow people away, because I don't think anybody was expecting like this kind of movie to happen. And it was a good movie. It was a good movie about like the ape uprising. It was done with a certain love and respect for what had come before. So like there are a lot of nods to the original in it, but yet it's done with love and respect. Like you see news reports about the Icarus mission, which is the one that Charlton Heston was on, that took him to the Planet of the Apes. You see news reports of that mission being launched. You see newspaper articles saying that the ship has been lost. So, like that storyline has been established. So Jan is saying, really, when you just hear about the concept, apes fighting humans and riding horses, yeah, right. Well, I think there's a part of you that, like, would sort of, I know for a lot of people, yeah, like, just hearing the concept alone is like, okay, that just sounds stupid. But then, like, there's another part, like, that's kind of intrigued by this idea. Because it is an interesting, like, what if question. What if apes had been the ones who evolved into the dominant species, and humans had been the ones who had stayed sedentary? And that was the original concept that the book was trying to explore. Or what if, like, the roles eventually become reversed? And so what you have in Rise of the Planet of the Apes is sort of the role reversal happening, but it's egged on by this virus. But again, that's something that works. It's something that sort of makes this rather outlandish concept believable. That, and I mean, it's kind of like, it's a virus that does a little bit too much of what it needed to do, because what it does is it makes apes smarter, but also kills humans. So Light of the King says, you mentioned the word Icarus. Was the ship named after Greek myth? Poor Icarus flew too close to the sun. That's true. Yeah, the name of the ship the name of the original mission that Charlton Heston's character was on was the Icarus. And so we see it launch in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And then we also see news reports of it being lost in Rise. And the only times that I felt like there were that it was forced was when they would have Tom Felton's character really sort of force in the cheesy Heston lines. And he does it twice. There's one point where he's bringing all the apes into their cages, and he screams, "It's a madhouse!" which just seemed weird. And then the big scene where he's fighting Caesar, and Caesar grabs him, and he says, "Take your damn paws off me, you damn dirty ape," which totally gets a pass for me, because that immediately gets followed up with Caesar screaming no at him, which is one of the best moments in the entire franchise. Because like it's just this wonderful. It's just like this wonderful moment where like everybody's jaw just drops. Like in the movie, like it shocks everybody, and because of that, it actually shocks us, the audience. Like, even though you know at some point he is going to have to speak, when he does, it's such a great moment. And Jan is saying, "Oh, he didn't say my father will hear about this." No, but there is a point where he's fighting Caesar with a taser stick. And basically, you can just make all the Harry Potter jokes you want just in that moment, because he looks like he's fighting him with a magic wand. And there's actually a riff tracks of it where they do that, where he's like, "Hey, I know how to beat you. Avada Kedavra! Eat slugs! This worked in school! My education was useless!" And Ava is saying, "After this discussion, I'm even more excited to see the new Apes movie, and I'll see it on Tuesday." Well, good. I hope you like it, because it really does. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for Dawn, because I know you and probably some others haven't seen it. It's a really good continuation of the story, and it's also a good escalation of events. Although when I walked out of Dawn, there was one guy who made a funny comment, but it also is kind of true. It's like this isn't so much Planet of the Apes as it is the Apes of Marin County, because both Rise and Dawn all take place in this very localized area, just north of San Francisco. But I mean that's how it is. Like that, it's focusing on these characters, and those characters can only be in one place. But I still think it works very well, and getting to see how the apes evolve and how they build their own society is really cool to see. And so beyond that, like I'm kind of like, you know what? I would love to see another movie maybe a few generations down the line when the ape society is much more established, and having the Icarus come back and having the plot line of the original Planet of the Apes play out in this new environment. I would totally dig seeing that. Aravandi saying, "I'll admit I am now kind of interested in seeing it sometime when I'm not drowning in school assignments." So Jan is saying, just to get a bit of a conclusion, obviously we're supposed to watch Dawn as well, but where should I go from there? Well, you know what? I don't want to say like you should watch Dawn. If you want to watch it, if you want to see it, I recommend it highly. I would also recommend reading the book. It's a very fast read. It's more of a novella. It's more of a novella than a full novel. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on audiobook. It's a very quick read, and it's a very interesting read. And it also, like, you sort of see from the book, like, where this whole concept comes from and why it is so interesting. Because I think even though the book isn't very long, it does a very good job of exploring this situation. So that's why I would recommend it. To me, the Planet of the Apes is a very interesting mythology. It's had its ups and downs, but I think as a concept, it's quite fascinating. And I think that where it's going now is also very cool to watch. I'm totally down for seeing another one in this new franchise that's been started. I would recommend checking out the other movies. Just going into it knowing that they are fairly low budget. They're all wearing masks that don't really move a whole lot. But I will say, in spite of that, Roddy McDowall, he plays Cornelius in the first three and Caesar in the second two. For how restrictive that mask is, he is surprisingly expressive. So I would recommend checking it out for that. Jan is saying Andy Serkis did Dawn instead of Hobbit pickups, right? I would love to ask him if he didn't miss New Zealand all the time as well. He seems like a great director too. It's probably true. I really don't know how Dawn conflicted with Hobbit, or if it did. I'm assuming it did, since Andy Serkis was a second unit director on The Hobbit. But it is what it is. I still think that Andy Serkis turned in probably one of the best performances of his career in Dawn. And I mean, that's saying, and I say that with all the love in my heart for Gollum. What he does with Caesar in Rise, and in particular in Dawn, is some of the most amazing work I've ever seen him do. So bear that in mind. Like, that is not to impugn his Gollum in any way. Like, I love Gollum. He's probably one of my favorite characters from the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies, even though he's only in one of them. Christian Rivers did the Hobbit pickups as the Splinter unit. Okay. Well, I'm sure that I trust Peter Jackson to have good people working with him, and so I don't think that whatever Andy Serkis wasn't able to do on The Hobbit because of Planet of the Apes has affected the movie in any real way. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm still looking forward to maybe one day soon we'll get a Hobbit trailer. Like, a lot of us are hoping that we will get this new trailer before we have to do our panel at Comic-Con on Thursday, so that we can add some new information. But that may not happen. We may get it. We may get the trailer the day of the panel. Who knows at this point? Yeah. Wait a sec. Jan is saying Peter Jackson just released the trailer. What? Okay, I was just about to sign off, but no. No, no, no. Let me just check this. Hang on. I don't see anything from Peter Jackson about the trailer. Oh God, what? However, yesterday Okay, let's see here. However, yesterday I finished work on a teaser trailer, and that has just been delivered to Warner Brothers, so no doubt this teaser trailer will be making its way into the world sometime soon. Dang it, Jan! You got my hopes up. Peter Jackson is saying that he has just finished... and wait a sec. No, that's from July 3rd. That's not even today. Jan, you're a jerk. What did you do? Okay. You know what? Just for that, Jan, I am never watching Batman ever again. And you know what? Christopher Nolan's a hack. There, I said it. So yeah, I think we'll probably see a trailer sometime at Comic-Con. So yeah. Anyway, back to the show, and sorry for that little distraction there. So yeah, Planet of the Apes. I would say watch it. I would recommend reading the book. It's not very expensive and it's not very long. I enjoyed it. I would love to hear what some of you think of it. It says, "You were too quick. I wrote it was a joke, like literally 2 seconds after the first message." Oh well. It's all your fault, Jan. You ruined everything. So yeah, as I said, for July, our book is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And we'll probably be discussing that after Comic-Con. I don't think having a book discussion on the floor at Comic-Con is probably the best thing to do. But we will definitely be webcasting from Comic-Con. If there isn't a particular Torn Book Club webcast next weekend, I'm sure you will see me throughout the convention webcast as we go. Light of the King is saying, "We don't joke about the trailer, my precious." This is true. Rovander says, "I think I got enough to read as it is right now." Throws a few glares at the small hill of books to read and PDF stuffs. Yeah, I know the feeling, and I'm reading a lot too. I'm trying to get through a lot of the future books of the month that I have in store for the rest of the year. So for August, we're probably not going to have a theme for August, so it's going to be whatever we want to talk about, various miscellaneous stuff I wasn't able to get to before. That's probably how it's going to be for August and for November. But we'll still have books to read. We'll still have discussions going. So everybody's telling me what they're reading right now. Aravandi's reading the Silmarillion. Light of the King is finishing the commentary of Beowulf. So yeah, plenty of stuff to read. That's never not been the case. Like I've never been in a situation where I'm like, God, I don't have anything to read. There's always something to read. So Light of the King is saying, in Beowulf for August, I will let you know. Yeah, I do owe you a big Beowulf discussion, which we will have. Jan is saying, I want to see what's behind the camera. Okay, actually, I will do that right now. Here we go. There. Just took a picture of what you see from my perspective, and I will post that on the Facebook page for you. So, going through the Vampire Masquerade books and clan books right now. First, yeah, Masquerade is fun. I like Vampire the Masquerade, but okay, so I'm going to bring this to a close right now. So I will see you all next week down at Comic-Con, and on Twitter as well. Okay, I'll post the picture on Twitter too. So I will see you all at Comic-Con, and I will see you all. I'll see you all next week, and I hope you have a great week, and never stop reading.